It's time for the power seat. Let me welcome Kunyalala Maphisa. She was recently appointed CEO of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu African Leadership Institute, the institution which for the last 20 years has run the Tutu Africa Leadership Program in partnership with Oxford University. Kunyalala Maphisa is herself a Tutu Fellow and was part of the inaugural AFLI cohort of the Tutu Fellowship Program in the year 2006. Kunyalala is a commercial attorney turned businesswoman with more than 20 years spanning corporate, executive, business and transactional advisory experience as well as development work. Her legal experience includes corporate finance and transaction advisory. She has worked with multiple African companies in multiple African countries. She previously practiced as an attorney in one of the largest commercial laws in South Africa, later serving in various senior executive positions, including at Ernst & Young South Africa, where she was head of emerging markets in the corporate finance unit. She founded a Johannesburg-based investment and advisory firm in 2018, recently relocating to and investing in Zimbabwe, where she currently lives. Kunyalala, good evening. Welcome to African Diaries.
Good evening to you too. I hope you are well.
I'm very well. How's your Shona going, Maneru?
Tiruko Magadi. First of all, I want to know why we are having a conversation at this time of the night. I don't understand it.
Kunyalala,
like, what is
all the most important people come out at night. You know this.
Actually, I don't. Really?
Yes,
really, I've been misbriefed.
It's good to have you on the show. You've been a commercial attorney, head of emerging markets, and founder of an investment firm, and now you are CEO of AFLI. At what point did you realize your career was about building systems and not just closing deals?
I don't know that it was a moment in time. I think that, throughout my life and throughout my career, I was always involved in some sort of, outside work that is non-technical or that is not related to my training. But then as you grow older, you sort of start to lean into that because that is where you find more meaning. And slowly you transition and that becomes your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. But you're excited with everything that is happening in your life?
I am.
Today?
I am.
Okay.
I'm loving it. I'm enjoying the work. And I think that is the type of work that, just gives one the latitude to be able to be creative, to be impactful, and to work with a really exciting bunch of people. So, yes, I'm happy.
You are part of the 2006 Tutu Fellowship, and now it's 20 years later, 2026. How has African leadership changed in the last 20 years?
I don't know that a lot of it has changed significantly because I'm sure you'd appreciate that the fact that particularly in the area of political leadership, we have more or less we have a lot of the same people that still occupy the same positions, and then you are like there's obviously a situation there that sort of needs to be spoken about. But I think I would say that for me the most fundamental issue is that there's a level of consciousness, not just from the leadership perspective, but also from people, with information being more accessible, information flowing more freely. It's people are a lot more conscious about the fact that this may not be the best way we want to move the continent forward, and so those conversations are happening, and I'm hopeful.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Africa needs to do more. I mean, this is 2026. We are supposed to be rising as a continent, yeah. So you sit on the board of PPC Limited and the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. How does governance differ when you're overseeing a listed cement company versus a central bank?
I don't know that it differs significantly because at the end of the day, it's about it's about ensuring that you adhere to governance principles. It's about making sure that the organization, whether it's I mean, the principles of governance really are fairly standard. Of course, it differs according to the institution that you are governing, but at the end of the day, the basic principles of what must happen, issues around performance, issues around ethics, issues around doing what is in the best interest of the organization, still remain consistent. So I would say that it's not fundamentally different. And I think that over time, what has happened also in the area of governance is that there has developed, it has become more consistent across the board. And so it becomes a bit easier to sort of look at the institutions in a similar way, to say what are the basic fundamentals that one needs to actually be concerned with.
So Kunyalala, a couple of years back, 2018, you decided to relocate your life and your capital to Zimbabwe. A lot of people don't trust the Zimbabwean economy. Why would you do that?
It's actually not a couple of years ago. It's not 2018. It's 2020. I probably would say that I moved more permanently in 2024.
Okay.
I still vacillate between Johannesburg and Harare. I guess in the world we live in today, it's sort of difficult once one has lived in different places to say that I have completely moved and I live in one. But why would I do that? I think that as one travels, you start to also learn the fact that the narrative that we read about is not always the situation on the ground. And then when you get into on the ground and you start to understand things a little bit better, you are like, actually, one can live here and can do more. And there's actually a requirement. I was born in Zimbabwe, first of all. I'm a dual South African Zimbabwean national. But I've lived everywhere else except for at home for the past maybe 25 years. And then you start to feel that, for all the things that you have learned out there, there's so much that one can be doing at home. And there's a lot that's happening that is actually quite exciting. It's an exciting time, I would say, in Zim at the moment. And so I thought, hey.
Fantastic. So you served as president of the Businesswomen's Association of South Africa, the largest network of professional women in South Africa as well. What's the one hard truth about gender in South African boards and similar boards across Africa?
Oh, wow. It's amazing that we talk about this consistently, and we've been speaking about this consistently over the years. What is similar and what remains the same is that a lot of the time these things are stuff of conversations. The reality on the ground is sometimes smacks you quite hard, and you just think, like, why am I sitting here in 2026 and still having this kind of conversation? So has the plight of women changed? Necessarily, the conversations have changed. I think the consciousness, again, I think we live in a world today where there's a lot of consciousness around a lot of things. What is politically correct? How should we be doing things? How should we appear now? What should we present? But whether the reality on the ground is actually that is something that's different. So consistently across the board, you still find that there are a lot of areas where these things are just conversations. But I'm also glad to say that I've served in entities where you are seen as a professional and you are heard as a professional, and your input is about what you are saying, and it's not about the fact that you are a woman. And particularly if you are a bit on the younger side, it can sometimes be challenging. But I think that consistently there's an understanding that young people also have a lot of things to bring to the table. Women have a lot to bring to the table. So I would say that it's consistent in that regard.
And so you moved from one of the largest law firms in South Africa into founding your own advisory firm. Was the transition difficult? What were the challenges?
Yes, of course. It wasn't difficult. It was a terrible nightmare.
Did you doubt yourself for a minute?
Again.
Yeah. Did you doubt yourself?
All the time, even now. I think all the time we do that. I think that it's it's a nightmare that periodically you wake up from and you're like, oh, hang on, I think I enjoyed this. And then sometimes you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? But I mean, that's a long time ago. I think I left practice, easily 10 years ago. No, more. And I think I haven't looked back. Of course, once a lawyer, always a lawyer. Every conversation you are pulled into it with the idea that you're wearing a legal hat. And in any event, the legal principles that you learn follow you everywhere, and they you sort of bring them to bear in every conversation and in every space that you're in. So yeah.
Okay, I understand. So M&A and corporate finance are still heavily male-dominated. What's a tactic you used early on in your career to be heard and to be taken seriously as a CEO?
You just try and deliver. There's really no way around it. You try to be excellent at what you do. You listen. I've often tried to have mentors around me, and I've had good ones. And mentors are not always like senior people. It's just people around you who know more or that understand more of what we are doing. And so I found that is something that has sort of stood me in good stead in terms of just making sure that I'm always in spaces where I'm listening, but I'm also heard, and I also allow myself to be guided, because there's a lot that you learn at school, and then the rest of it you learn in practice. You can only do that if you're working with people that that can assist you in or guide you, or and you also have to work very hard.
Yeah, so
can't run away from that bit.
Yeah, true. Your work has got to speak for its own. Yeah. So Kunyalala, recently you've been working and focusing on raising capital and ensuring that all the businesses you're in are self-sustainable. How difficult is it to raise capital in Africa with everything that is going on globally in 2026?
I think just to sort of correct you a bit there. Recently, I've been working as full time at the African Leadership Institute. The fundraising component, which is what I've really done the bulk of my legal career in sort of transaction advisory. It is difficult. I mean, I think that one of the greatest challenges around capital raising is the issue of the project readiness or project preparation, because you often find a lot of people that will say they've got projects, and then at the same time you've got capital that is out there looking for investor ready projects. And generally there isn't anything called an investor ready project. One has to actually invest in preparing a project to get it to a point where it is a fundable project. So that disconnect has really been one of the biggest issues, where people have got ideas, they don't have projects. You've got to do a lot of work to turn an idea into your project, and then and then get the project into a state of preparedness where you can then say, capital would rest in a project like that. So that disconnect between and the investment that is required, because it's investment in terms of time, but it's also investment in terms of money, to do the work of preparing projects to get them to a point where they are considered viable and make sense.
Oh, fantastic. You've been on the UCT's governing council with your LMA, LLM, and your BA in public policy from the UCT itself. How do you think universities should be preparing law and commerce students for leadership roles on the African continent?
I think there's a role to play by institution in terms of meeting the academic and the practical. Because I often say for the number of years I spent studying, if I had just spent a bit of that also just understanding the practical world within which my career is going to play, it would have stood me in great stead. So I think that yes, there's the academic part that you must do, and I mean I did a BA in public relations, and then I did an LLB, and then I did an LLM, and you can imagine that is a lot of years at university. And then when you come out, you first have to unlearn that what you have learned, and then learn, new things, because practice is a completely different animal. And so I think that part of that preparedness requires that there's a lot of interface, and I see that happening. I mean, you always see the students on attachment in the middle of their school or their schooling years. But I think that I often feel that it's almost a sideshow and it's not a central part of learning.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you presented many papers and spoken across the continent as well as internationally. What do you think the African conversation should truly be about at a time such as this?
Yeah, that is actually a really good question. And then that is one of the questions that we are currently grappling with from the perspective of the African Leadership Institute, because what we are saying is that having over the past 20 years, collected is the wrong word, maybe amassed a large number of fellows that are some of the top, leaders on the continent. One of the things that we often talk about is the fact that we don't always have an African position. We go out there, our leaders go out there, they have different conversations, whether it's on climate change, whether they're having conversations on finance, whether they're having conversations. And then you're like, in those convenings or in those meetings, what is the African position? What is a consolidated African position on any conversation that is actually happening? And I think for me, that is one of the that is one of the big gaps that we see, and we think that it's difficult to even say what is the common African position, other than the fact that in the middle of all this dynamic, in this global dynamic, what is our space, and how do we define our space? How do we decide how we define our space? How do we collect ourselves in order to have the conversation so that we can make those definitions that matter? So it's a little bit of a difficult one, and there's not a single answer to that.
Well, I know it's very late, and what time do you normally sleep, Kunyalala?
Well, I'm surprised I'm still awake. In fact, I'm just wondering whether I'm sleepwalking with this is actually happening. Well, roundabout now will be a good time.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're about to call it a night. After Big Law, Big Four, your own firm, boards, you everywhere. What do you think your legacy will be about to young wannabe, young women in business on the African continent?
I always say that what I would like to leave behind is the ability for young people to understand that the journey of life is very long, We often doubt ourselves for different reasons. I mean, earlier when you were asking me a question, I said, yeah, I used to doubt myself about A, B, C, and D. But when every day you can do your very best, you start to learn to trust yourself. And my legacy would be that I would love it for it to be, I worked hard. I did what I had to do. I did the best I could to make the impact that I can make. And then young people can also see that when you believe in yourself, when you are always open to opportunities, when you open yourself up to learning, the world opens up to you.
Oh, you've been amazing. Thank you so much, Kunyalala. I'm going to let you sleep, but I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And we hope you're back again on this show next week at midnight. I'm joking.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. On the power seat tonight was the amazing Kunyalala. Keep it right here on Channel Africa.